we're allowing that to be a condition of issuance of a certificate of occupancy. However, we're still going to ask that the plans be amended before the chairman signs the plan to include the appropriate notes from the village. And they're pretty well identified on our comment letter, but obviously if you have any questions, get a hold of us on that.
Not a problem. Yeah, I think you cited the particular sections of the code in there, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't have an issue with that.
That's pretty much it, Hans.
Okay. Sarah, you want to go over the resolution?
Sure. I'm going to try to summarize it since everyone has received a copy of it today. Whereas the application involves a change in use of vacant commercial space to a 98-seat restaurant in the existing building located within the shopping plaza at 992 Main Street within the Village Center Business District. And whereas the applicant has submitted plans and supporting materials to the board for their review. And whereas the addition of the restaurant to the existing building would increase the number of required parking spaces on the site to 143, where only 120 parking spaces exist. Whereas section 171-97.a of the village zoning law states that the planning board may modify the minimum parking standards as a condition of issuance of a site plan approval. And whereas the applicant has prepared a shared parking analysis which considered the functionality and parking capacity of the parking lots at 992 Main Street and 1004 Main Street that have historically operated as one parking lot for the existing shopping center and the peak parking usage time for the restaurant versus the other uses within the site. Whereas the parking study concluded that there would be adequate parking available for the proposed restaurant use. Whereas on June 18, the planning board determined that the proposed action is a type 2 action with no further review under seeker required. Whereas on June 18, the Village of Fishkill Planning Board waived the public hearing on the amended site plan application. Whereas the application was referred to Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development in accordance with section 239M of the General Municipal Law, and said department responded to said referral by way of its correspondence dated June 30th, 2020, and recommended that the board rely upon its own study of the facts to make a decision. Now therefore it be resolved that pursuant to section 171-91A of the zoning law, the planning board hereby modifies the minimum number. Sorry, I lost my place. The minimum number of required spaces for the site to 120 spaces in consideration of the peak parking usage time for the restaurant being different than the peak parking usage demand of other uses at the site, the availability of spaces on the adjacent lot, which has historically been used in conjunction with the site, and that there is no addition to the existing footprint or a reduction in the number of existing parking spaces. This modification is subject to the current mix of uses at the site and is subject to modification by the planning board if such uses change. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby grants amended site plan approval to the project as described and shown on the application materials, subject to compliance with the following conditions. The following conditions shall be fulfilled prior to the chairman signing the plans. The comments in the village engineer's letter dated May 5, 2020 shall be addressed prior to the chairman signing the site plan, with the exception that the following items shall be demonstrated prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The plan shall identify the location, sizes, materials, manufacturers, and models as appropriate of all existing and new water service lines supplying the use, including acceptable meters and backflow prevention devices. If new meters and or backflow prevention devices are required, detailed schematics shall be submitted to the village for review and approval prior to installation. If a new backflow prevention device is proposed, the applicant shall submit an executed DOH 347 application for approval of backflow prevention devices. The plan shall identify the sizes and materials and location of existing sanitary sewer lines from the proposed restaurant space, including an appropriately sized grease trap. Discharge from the kitchen/food service areas of the restaurant shall be demonstrated to have a separate line and plumbed to a grease trap prior to discharge to the municipal sewer service. If a new grease trap is required, detailed plans and calculations shall be submitted to the village for review and approval prior to installation, and payment of all fees and outstanding escrow. Then the remaining conditions are the standard conditions dealing with expiration of the site plan, payment of all consultant fees. Any future modifications shall be subject to further review by the planning board. And that's everything.
Okay. Any board members have any further comments or questions at this time? Teresa? Turn your mic on, Teresa.
Sorry. No, I don't.
Steve?
No comments, Hans.
Suzanne?
No comment, Hans.
Raylene?
No comment.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to accept this project. Roll call vote, please.
I move to accept the resolution to grant amended site plan approval to 992 Main Street.
Okay. Second. Do I have a second?
Second from Steve.
Okay. Will the secretary take a roll call vote, please?
Roll call. Hans Klingsland,
Yes.
Steve Brown,
Yes.
Raylene Van Gelderen,
Yes.
Suzanne Spezialy,
Yes.
Teresa Cucciolo.
Yes.
Carried.
Okay. That wraps it up. Welcome to the Village of Fishkill.
Thank you so much.
Hans, I'm so glad you said that, because if you didn't, I know he's been here for 19 years, but if you didn't, I was going to be disappointed.
You can re-welcome me. It's great. I'm just moving down the street. Well, thank you, everyone. I
Thank you
appreciate
very much.
Good luck,
You're welcome.
Scott.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
luck.
guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Wellesley Center, 953 to 961 Main Street, expansion and redevelopment informational session. Is the applicant present? Please identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, village staff. Great to be with you, and thank you for scheduling this special meeting. My name is Neil Alexander. I'm a partner at Cuddy & Fader. Along with me tonight is Joe Modafferi from JMC, Bill Brothers from FCON, Reverend Pankey and Charles Mack are both also here from the Church of the Nazarene. I know it's been a little bit of time, so if you'll indulge us, what we're going to try and do is just make sure we're all on the same page and thinking about the same things, and sort of go back over the journey a little bit quickly, procedurally, and then I think Joe is going to go over substantively, you know, really get granular and hopefully address any and all of your concerns and questions. I think that's procedurally where we'd like to head. Obviously, this is collaborative, so if at any point we start going past something you want to make sure we talk about, please feel free to interrupt, and we'll go from there. I think what I just wanted to sort of, believe it or not, it's been just under a year since we started this process formally, or at least I was formally involved in this process with the village. In July of last year, we submitted our application. That was an application that has evolved quite a bit, as you all know, from the current iteration. But that application was submitted then. You all circulated notice of your intent to be lead agency in October. Sorry, my notes are this way, so I keep looking that way. I apologize. I'm not ignoring you or anything. And you declared your intent, you declared yourselves actually lead agency in January of 2020. We've had some meetings with you. We've had some meetings over with the ZBA in the town of Fishkill. And obviously we've spent a lot of time working with the Board of Trustees, and very fortunately pursuant to your authorization with staff. That led to meetings February, March, April, and May by Zoom and in person, not only with staff, but also with the fire chief, or fire bureau, more accurately, also with talks relative to water and sewer, led to a submission on April 30th. That was a big submission. That was a demarcating submission because that was when we moved the project solely into the village, all elements and all aspects. We followed that up with, I think Joe spent a lot of time in that room that you can see him in right now, working on the May 13th submission, which was essentially a part 1, part 2, and to the extent necessary, a part 3 of an EAF, analyzing every aspect of the project. There's been a lot of input already. We obviously welcome more from you all, and we've tried to adjust and be smart and safe. And we really appreciate, I gotta say, that although we didn't get a chance to meet with you all for 4 months, we really appreciate staff. Everybody on the staff side was, able to give us comment memos that we were able to respond to, and we were able to keep moving the project, definitely slower than normal, but at least moving. So we thank everybody for that. With that, I'm going to just remind you all of 2 last things. One is that SHPO did give us a no impact letter in February of this year. And pursuant to the DEC's letter that came out in January, we've agreed relative to Indiana bats to a no cut period that is becoming, unfortunately, quite standard if you're west of Route 9 now in Dutchess County, particularly Southern Dutchess. And then I think Joe's going to work through everything he's done. We also, since we submitted on May 13th, we're also the beneficiaries of FP Clark's June 17th memo and Larry Padgey's office's June 23rd memo that we're prepared to discuss as well. I think some of those aspects really get deep into site plan, which sort of as we get further into this evening, we'd like to differentiate from seeker and finishing the seeker process, because we see the two as distinct. And that's a little foreshadowing, so to speak, but let's get through the granular aspects of Joe's presentation relative to the ins and outs of every aspect that we've tried to think through. And with that, I guess, Joe, sorry to put all the pressure on you. I got the easy part tonight.
No problem, Neil. No problem at all. So to reiterate what Neil said, thank you for having the meeting tonight, inviting us and allowing us to work with your consultants and staff through the last 3-4 months, and even prior to that. I think we've accomplished a lot. If I could, I'd like to share my screen, which it'll allow me to do, looks like.
I made you a co-host.
Oh, I'm a co-host?
Yeah.
I'm honored. All right, so let's see, share. So let's see. So what you should be looking at now is an image of the site plan. Is everyone seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
I don't see the red line around it that I typically see. And to make sure.
Yes.
So as Neil indicated, tonight we're really focused on trying to get through seeker. But related to that, I wanted to go through the site plan issues as well. Again, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, and we've been working on this for a long time. So just to cover or again what this whole project is about. Rezoning of the subject property, which is the church parcel here, from residential to VCBD, and then certain text amendments that are associated with that. The site is a little over 7 acres, with about 4 3/4 acres within the village, and the remaining 2.5 acres in the town. On-site existing structures are the church, the existing Church of the Nazarene, and the old education building, which serves as an office and a small Chinese church. The proposed development, again, is to rezone this portion of the site from R10 to VCBD. A senior living facility. The senior living facility would provide 103 dwelling units, which is down from 110 from your previous, from the previous submissions, and construct a daycare facility adjacent to the church. And then the existing church and the office education building are proposed to remain. So looking at this plan, what's different from when we saw you last? The biggest difference is the fact that this project is now entirely within the village. Right here, we are not proposing any improvements that would require any sort of board approvals or anything like that within the town parcel. Therefore, you know, there's no longer a vehicular connection to Florence. As I stated before, another difference is the reduction in the number of units. We now have 103 as opposed to 110. In doing this redesign, the main access to the senior living facility has been located in the portion of the site that is facing the town line, town village line. If you remember previously, it was located here in the middle of the U-shaped building, and we had a big turnaround here and drop off with Port Cochere. So that gives us this green space here that you know, makes it a little bit nicer from viewing from the village side. Parking within the building. You will remember previously we had some proposed parking underneath the building that was accessed from the rear here. Now it's accessed from the front over here, and it's in this portion of the building, on the northerly side of the building. Architectural design changes. A portion of the building is now proposed in accordance with the zoning text amendments to be 4 stories. The middle of the U right here. The legs of the U here and here is going to be 3 stories. The 4-story structure would have a mansard roof, and the 3-story portions of the building would have the same pitched roof that we had in previous submissions. And what results is essentially, although according to code and definitions and measurements, building heights are different, when you see the building architecture, that the actual height of the building is really the same. And in terms of, so this is 4 stories, 45 feet. Get the zone, I think it's one of your industrial zone, has an allowance for 4 stories and 45 feet as well, or at least 45 feet. So we are consistent with other areas of the village where the 45 feet is permitted. In terms of what's the same with this submission from the last one, again, the daycare is proposed. It's the same 108 students. There's been slight modifications to the footprint and the layout in order to accommodate the driveway around the building. And the site access along the frontage is all still the same. We're still reduction in 1 driveway, and we still have the connection to the Cecilwood Health Center site. Also, we are still proposing the fuel cell on the back side of this, on the northern corner of the site here. Go to the next. So grading and utilities, what's changed here? Again, no development within the town. And in order to make the building work with the site access and the building access into the front door here, the road is, or the access drive is being raised up to an elevation of 219.5. And then we're coming out of this side still at 219.5 and pitching slightly down in our green area. What has changed as a result of this design is we are required to provide some compensatory story for the FEMA flood zone, which I'll get into a little bit later, but that's basically being provided in some subsurface units right here that'll connect to the existing piping system. Stormwater management has been divided into smaller subsurface units spread throughout the site, and we've also incorporated some porous pavement. Previously, we had a single larger unit back here on the town parcel, and that was fairly deep. We did some preliminary testing and found that groundwater was at roughly 6 feet. We continued to maintain, we had a monitoring well put in, and we looked at that once a week for quite a few months up until probably end of March, beginning of April, I think. And it kind of maintained that same 6-foot elevation. So that's a little bit of a different change. We've kind of separated out the storm drainage, but we think that this new design works just as well as the last, or even better, because of what we found in the field testing. Sanitary sewers will still be connected to the village main and the street. Domestic fire and water, we are showing a connection to the existing village-owned main right here at this, at our, I guess, southerly driveway right in front of your pump station. And the water main will come through the site around the senior housing building. And there is an offer of cession shown on the plans that we've submitted to allow that water main to come through the town-owned parcel and be run up Florence and connect to, I think it was Wood Place. We are still working with your consultants on what that really needs to be. But again, I think that's a site plan related issue, not really a seeker issue. You know, that's something, again, we can talk about later. Again, the fuel cell in terms of the utilities provides climate control and hot water for the senior housing. It's very efficient. And I know there's been some concerns raised about this by members of the board, your consultants, and the fire department, and the fire inspector. We currently have a meeting scheduled for this coming Monday evening at Village Hall to meet with them and discuss this. We've provided a lot of information about the fuel cell in the seeker book, in the EAF supplement that provides a lot of information about it. Again, I'll get into that a little bit later. I have some more information. In terms of the architecture, Bill, if it's okay with you, I'll just run through it, and if you want to add.
No, it's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, so as I said, the cellar plan, that accommodates the parking that we are putting underneath the building and a little bit of mechanical space in the back corner. We have a ramp that's coming from the site down into the parking area, I believe I could go back to the grading plan, but I think the top of the ramp is at roughly 215, 16, and the first floor of the parking area is at 209. First floor, the center of the U is predominantly common space, the dining areas and things like that, offices, and then the wings of the U are residential units. Floors 2 and 3, which are here and here, are essentially all residential throughout the entire shape of the U. The fourth floor, again, that's just in the bottom of the U, where we're providing only residential units. And you can see the roof of the third floor on the sides here. And then there's a roof plan that we've provided showing the flat portion of the roof and the mansard sides for the fourth floor, the 4-story building, and then the pitched roof for the wings of the U and the on the 3-story portion. These are some elevations that were provided with your site plans. You can see by looking at these, this here is the middle of the first east elevation, right in the middle. That is the 4-story portion. You can see the windows into the residential units at the top, and you can see that the building height across it is the same. The north elevation, you're only seeing the 3-story portion, but again, you cannot see the 4th-story units behind it, same height. The west elevation, I think that might be, I think those two might be mixed, the south and the west, but again, this is the side showing only the 3-story, and then the bottom section again is showing the 4th-story, where you would be looking at the green space. This floor at the bottom center goes into the dining area. And then the daycare, again, is the same as we've gone over before. It's a 2-story building with the classrooms on the 1st floor and support office space on the 2nd floor. Minor adjustments to the layout to accommodate the site change, but that's essentially it. Still the same total square footage of about 6,600 square feet, somewhere in that range. And then here's the sections of the church and the proposed daycare. So again, you know, we're here tonight looking for to advance the seeker determination. We submitted 2 packages. The first was the full package with all the site plan information, and then we followed through with a supplemental report, as Bill had mentioned, covering part 1, 2, and somewhat part 3 at CAF. And I felt it would be important tonight to go through 2 sections of that. The zoning and land use section and the key environmental conditions / potential impacts. And I think, you know, in the conclusion of this, when we finished, you know, as a team, and it's stated in our report that this analysis really supports a negative declaration for this project, as there were you know, minimal impacts to the environment. So this is not the whole 92 pages. I just took pieces of it. So just beginning, you know, the proposed action is to do the zone change. Important statement in the summary of the zoning petition. The proposed zoning map amendment will be fully consistent with the pattern of zoning and development of the site's immediate vicinity, as well as the village's comprehensive plan adopted by the Village Board of Trustees in July of 2009. So again, we're rezoning this to VCBD. The VCBD is just to the north or east of us. In terms of the text amendments associated with the rezoning to accommodate the senior housing and some of the other things that we're doing, I thought it might be important to touch on what's related to text amendments related to senior living. The first, it may be part of a mixed use and or standalone project or use. We are a mixed use. Minimum land area is 3.5 acres. We're more than that. Development frontage must be along a state or county highway of 225 feet. We are more than that. Access, again, on a state or county highway, we're providing that on Main Street. Density of, maximum density of 25 units. We are just under that. This is something that you'll recall we discussed at previous meetings. We originally had it at, I think, 35 or somewhere there's-abouts, but came down to 25 in discussions with your board and your consultants. Maximum building height. So the maximum building height is 3 stories and 40 feet, but the text amendment allows for an increase of up to 4 stories and 46 feet, subject to the building being set back foot above the 40 feet. You have to be set back 50 lineal feet from the front yard. So, and it can be the whole building or it can be a portion thereof. So we're doing it in a portion thereof, just in the area that's set back.
Joe, if you don't mind, let me just remind the board, these are standards that the applicant has proposed. So these aren't the standards that are applicable yet. This is what they're asking for.
Yes. So this is what we will be looking for approval from the village board. Yes. Utilities, the development must have village water and village sewage, village sewer. Maximum building footprint of 34,500 square feet. We are less than that. Occupancy, we discussed this quite a bit early on and decided to go with persons that are 62 years and older and other parameters that relate to legal stuff that if we have questions related to that, I'll let Neil. So you won't be getting off that easy, Neil. Temporary occupancy again, a child of a 62-year-old and guests can be there for up to 30 calendar days. There are exceptions where basically you can have one unit occupied by a building superintendent that's not 62 years or older. And then the minimum parking is 1 space per dwelling unit plus 1 space per 2 employees and 5% of the total number of dwelling units for visitors. So if you'll recall, we had or requested a waiver at one point for parking because we're a mixed use. We're now requesting a variance as part of the project, but we have provided with the latest package and previous packages a parking analysis that indicates that we believe that we have more than adequate parking based on the different times that the different uses will be used. Our analysis was very conservative, and even the latest comment memo from your consultant had indicated that they believe that that there is sufficient parking on the site for all of the uses. So just a quick summary of the approvals required. Seeker, which we're here for right now. Right after we have seeker, we'll be back in front of the village board for rezoning and the zoning text amendments. Then the report actually had the order a little bit different because what we need next would be the variances, and then we would go for a special permit and site plan from your board again. So the variances that we need. Increase in the maximum building footprint. That's associated with the daycare center where the VCBD only allows a maximum of 1,000 square feet, where we're proposing 6,600. Decrease in the minimum building separation. So in the VCBD, you're supposed to have a minimum of 10 feet of separation. We are proposing that the church and the daycare center be built right next to each other, so we have a 0-foot separation. Decrease in the maximum distance from Route 52. So there's a note in your Schedule C that says that the non-residential buildings in the VCBD shall be located entirely maximum distance of 150 feet from Main Street or NY 52. When we switch to the VCBD, or when this site would become part of the VCBD district, the church would be actually all three buildings: the church, the education building and office, and the daycare facility would all be closer than the 150 feet. So we would need a variance for all of them. And, you know, the one that is proposed is a daycare center, but it just makes sense to put it along that same line and maintain that visual, the visual that you see there. A reduction in the number of parking spaces we touched on already. And then key environmental factors.
Joe, before we move to that, I just have a quick question on the variances.
Yes.
I think we determined that the building separation, that because the daycare building and the church are actually one building, that you don't need that variance for the separation. Tom, do you recall that? I think we had that discussion at the meeting.
I was going to ask that question. Yes, I do recall that. I thought we resolved that.
Yeah, because that's considered, it's actually one building, right?
Correct. Right, Joe?
That's a building or architectural question. I think it's going to have a firewall between it. So I don't know. I recall the discussion. I don't recall whether it's it was resolved or whatever, but I think we can, as far as I know, I think we can do it either way, other than Neil, maybe issues with the IDA.
Yeah, I think what we were doing, Sarah, this is a great conversation, and I'm glad you stopped us here. I mean, I think that we hadn't fully worked through all the fire ratings and confirmed that from a cost, you know, to determine whether it was going to be considered a separate building or together. I think that I mean, just for the sake of transparency and we'd love to have, you know, jettison a variance, but we're there anyway, so we want to get the appropriate ones. The daycare isn't necessarily going to be operated by the church or under necessarily its auspices. It may be a third party tenant So to the extent it's factoring into your thoughts as to whether it's a separate building or the same building, I just wanted to share that fact. And if I misstated that, if Reverend Pankey wants to jump in and clarify even further, you know, more than welcome to have him do that. But we're saying that from the standpoint of collaborating and transparency here, that our intent is to have a third party who will be a for-profit entity potentially.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we'll have to consider that. But my thought is, you know, when we have a shopping center, and we have multiple tenants, we don't require, you know, one restaurant to get a separation variance from the tenant next door. So, and they would be separate entities, and there would.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I think we had just gone the conservative route initially, but I think you're probably right. You know,
Okay, I mean, we can have more conversation about that, but
Yeah, I think so. So,
I think that's
Counselor,
how we treat it.
Counselor, is this one building or is this two buildings now?
Counselor
Okay.
Victoria? Yes. I mean, I think we should go back and look. There's not a lot line between it, right? It's on one single lot.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, if it walks like a duck and sounds like a duck, but
I was going to say it's a dachshund, you know, it's one really long dog.
Yeah.
so, I mean, we're open to hearing your argument as to why you think it's two, but
I think honestly, we weren't trying to make it two. We were really being super conservative and identifying any and every possible variance. That's all we were trying to do. So and Bill, I think, is going to jump in from a building code.
Yeah, I'm not at all concerned about providing the fire rating between the two buildings, which would be required for use. If anything, I think it's one building that may end up being two tax lots at some point, but I don't see it being a two buildings. Because at least all of the codes that we work in, if it became two buildings, the separation for fire loss would be huge and and undoable. So I think the approach that you're taking is the right one.
And
It's tenancies. Go ahead.
Just let me clarify that the daycare provider that we're talking with is currently a 501c3 daycare provider, and they would occupy the first floor of that new building, and the church would occupy the second floor of that for its personal educational space.
Which all ties back to Sarah being correct, to look at this as a shopping center.
Well, if we want to just put it that way, if we can put it that way.
No, you're right. You're right. But I think that is the best way intellectually to look at it. I think also with the fact that I think we're more than likely looking at a commercial condo in order to address the separation horizontally and vertically from the standpoint of how economic incentives can flow in appropriately, because obviously church and state issues and also 501c3 issues versus a for-profit entity. So I don't think we have a problem letting that variance not be sought. I think that's a great idea.
Who is going to own that building? The church is going to own that building?
I think, Hans, where we are is, if you look at the site as a whole, I think we will probably wind up with some kind of a master condominium with common elements, where the areas associated with the senior housing will be one entity in order to be able to do a straight lease transaction with the IDA and bring in the economic incentives associated with that, especially given the commitment to some units being affordable. And then the church building obviously would be a separate element of that condo, which would not be taxable. And then the daycare would be another entity. That building would be run a certain way, and depending on if the tenant's 501c3, it either will or won't be taxable.
Well, that's my question is, if the church is going to own that building and they lease it out or whatever to the daycare people, that's one thing. But if is it going to be the other way around? Somebody else going to own that building and the church sort of just uses or leases?
No. It's not intended as a sale and lease back. It's intended as the church will be, the reason I'm hemming and hawing is I'm a little bit outside my legal awareness of how incidental income for a not-for-profit in the form of rent makes a real estate property taxable from a real property standpoint. That's the question I just don't know the answer to. You know, it depending on how the structure of this daycare pays rent to the church, it may or may not cross a threshold that I may or may not be aware of, candidly. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure I did a good job of that. Let me try that again. So a not-for-profit is allowed to essentially have income that it gets unrelated to its mission up to a certain threshold. After that, if it's in the form of rent, it could lead to that portion of the building being on the rent roll, on the tax rolls, real property tax rolls for the village. Obviously, the senior center is part of the project will be on the tax rolls. That's why we're structuring the pilot.
Yeah, I think a different issue that I sort of heard in Hans's question was that the what is the intent to own the building, and the intent is the church is going to have the continued ownership of the building. They may just have an operator for the daycare center.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear mention of a separate tax lot being created here also?
I think we're going to do it by condo. Our goal is to
Okay.
do it by condo unless the IDA decides that they're uncomfortable with that. But it would just be a financing line. Our intent is to do condominium ever since we had the whole discussion about on the prior iteration. It's just easier for a condo for everybody.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that was a good spiral.
Wow.
No more bets.
Yeah.
Next in the report was the key environmental conditions, environmental impacts, or potential environmental impacts, and the neighborhood character. And really, you know, how do you do that? You look at the comprehensive plan, and we spent a lot of time reviewing that plan and seeing how this project conforms to that. And comprehensive plan outlines policy goals and recommendation statements. And this project complies with, in our eyes, 13 of those. The first of which being the village will enhance and establish gateways at a major gateway location to define entrances to the village to help maintain a sense of community identity. This project is right on the village-town line. It's by definition a gateway. We're providing sidewalks, we're providing landscaping along the frontage. We're looking to provide a bus shelter if we can make that work out. So we really feel that it complies with that one. The village will encourage neighborhood and civic organizations to identify collective concerns and organize community involvement. The church in and of itself is a civic organization or community organization. They recognized a concern and a need for the senior housing and daycare, which is the reason why we're here. The village shall continue to encourage the establishment of businesses to serve the population of the village center, especially pedestrians and senior citizens. So we've got sidewalks throughout the site, along the frontage, connecting to sidewalks already there within the village. And obviously we're here for a senior living project. So, we're complying with that. The village will require new development to be harmonious with the setting, scale, and design of the surrounding architecture and landscape elements. Again, we think we did a very good job of taking the architecture for the daycare center and the senior living facility and making it fit in with the surrounding area, kind of taken from architectural features within those existing buildings. The existing education building has a partial mansard style roof that can be, you know, that's kind of carried through in the 4-story portion of living. Landscaping, we're providing a lot of landscape elements and trying to tie it into the rest of the village. Next, the village will encourage a variety of housing types, including single-family, attached and detached, two-family, and multifamily, and accessory housing. We are providing 103 units of multifamily housing for senior citizens age 62 and older. Next, the village will consider inclusionary zoning, which would require 10% moderately priced housing in any development of 10 or more units. We are committed to providing that 10% of moderately priced housing. Next, the village should implement good access management principles at every opportunity, including consolidation of driveways, distribution of traffic to controlled intersections, the provision for rear parcel access such as service alleys, and the elimination of multiple driveways. So consolidation of driveways. We've eliminated a driveway on our parcel. Distribution of traffic to controlled intersections. That's exactly the reason why we entered into the agreement with the Cecilwood Health Center. They have a signalized intersection that allows us to get access to and from our site. Rear access, I guess you could say we had that at the town, but nobody really liked it. So we don't comply with that, but we're complying with other concerns of the community. Elimination of multiple driveways we went through. Next, the village should look for opportunities to create shared parking behind buildings that link properties together and provide internal circulation alternatives. We touched on the internal circulation and the shared parking already earlier tonight that we are providing on this project. The village should continue to maintain and extend and complete linkages in the existing sidewalk system to facilitate safe pedestrian access. Again, we have sidewalks within our site from the senior housing all the way up to the church and the daycare and the education building, all the way out to the street, tying into existing sidewalks that are already there. The village should continue to provide pedestrian amenities such as benches, sidewalks, crosswalks, and should accommodate bus shelters and encourage pedestrians to walk. Again, we already talked about the bus shelter and the sidewalks. The village will promote.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Teresa Kuchlo, board member. So the parcel that's not part of the land, the village, I know that we're not really talking about that, but is that intended to become more of a landscaping area with, because I remember in the last plans you had area that would be for gardening and such like that. So is that is that part of this plan also?
The town-owned parcel?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is no proposed development whatsoever on the town parcel.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
All right. Yeah, because prior to this, your last one had a little bit more, you know, meandering paths, and there was I believe a place where people could have garden plots and all that. So that's all gone?
Yes, because, you know, the town, for lack of any other better term, didn't want us there.
Oh.
You know, they were not interested, and they basically pushed us away. We went to a few planning board meetings. Actually, I don't think we ever made it to the planning board. We went to a Zoom, if I remember.
Right, the planning board wouldn't, we asked for months to be put on an agenda. We were not put on an agenda. We went to the ZBA once, and it was a very
contentious.
Yeah, I was looking for the right euphemism, but yeah, that it was not a positive experience. And
Oh, I'm sorry I brought it up then.
no. But you know, even to the extent that there have been some, yeah, leave it there.
Okay, thank you. That's a
Essentially,
shame because it looked nice.
well, thank you. We thought so too. Unfortunately, you know, it's not this planning.
Okay,
We are going to maintain a vehicular connection to the one existing house because there is a driveway that comes through that parcel. And right now we have a hydrant that's proposed on the town parcel at the end of the water line that we're proposing right now. You know, again, we're working through what that needs to be with your consultants and town staff.
okay.
Joe, it's Victoria speaking. Is there some way to just fix your microphone a little? We're getting a lot of static.
No.
I think there might be a few people who are unmuted, and I think that's part of it as well.
Maybe if I move it closer to me, is this better? Yes, better?
Yeah, seems better.
All right. Sorry, you're looking at my chin. Well, I guess I could do that. There you go. All right. So, pedestrian amenities we went through. Village will promote land use practices that protect surface and groundwater and work to eliminate known sources of pollution. Your previous submission included a very substantial stormwater prevention plan, probably 2 inches thick or so, that was under review by Larry. He did have some comments on it, and you know, we think for purposes of seeker, we think we've proven that we can address the concerns and meet the requirements, and we can work through the technical issues as we get through site plan later on. The village should provide for multifamily housing at village density within the central business area of along Main Street. We're on Main Street, we're in the central business area, and we're providing multifamily housing. The village will consider ways to preserve appearance of the village while allowing mixed development. We'll get into the appearance of the village a little bit later, but you know, basically we are maintaining the church and the education building, and the daycare center right next to it. Those elements will essentially screen the, for the most part, the senior housing, or substantially screen the senior housing behind it. And again, we are a mixed-use development. And so that is the neighborhood character.
I was actually going to jump in here for a second, Joe, and sort of say this is, you know, as you head into the visual impacts and to tie back to Teresa's sort of question, I think this section that Joe's about to jump into is really the most distinctly different aspect from what you've seen before in two ways. One, we hadn't advanced under the prior iteration the visual studies anywhere near as much as what you're about to see. And then there's also the fact that, which the visual studies show, is that although sort of the top line notion of that elements of this project are going to be 4 stories now and 45 feet, the reality, as you'll see, is that it's no different, because that's 4 stories, 45 feet with a mansard roof, as opposed to 3 stories with a peaked roof, where the measuring of it will essentially be the same, and the 4-story element is the farthest back element. So we tried to, you know, and that really comes about candidly as a balance between needing to move everything out of the town and into the village, also creating a much better circulation pattern using the west facade of the building as the entrance, as opposed to the east, which gives you more greenery actually in the village than under the prior iteration. So with that, sorry if I took some thunder away, Joe. I just wanted to tie it back to and give a little bit of a prelude as to why some, it's not purely apples to apples comparison because we hadn't advanced the visual study under the prior iteration compared to this. But I think you're really, as a board, you're going to find a lot that when you looked at the zoning text amendment, you may have had a little bit of pause about the way that was written. But I think once you've seen this section, you're going to see that it was very thoughtful and really no different in the field and once constructed the built environment than even though the on the paper elements are different. As far as the code, the way the code's written, 3 versus 4, or 35 feet versus 45 feet kind of a thing. So thank you for letting me push in there, Joe.
Not a problem, Neil, and no apologies needed. So in terms of the visual impacts, again, that's a primary environmental condition that is typically questioned. So we spent a lot of time looking at that as well. We completed a building footprint analysis comparison of where the building was before back further within the town and how we shifted it into the village further away from the town and how that reduces the impact to those in the town around us. We provided a bird's eye rendering for context, and I'll show these in just a minute. And then comparison, again, of the 3-story versus 4-story designs. Sightlines analysis from Main Street and sightline analyses from the streets within the town. And street views from within the town, and then just a comparison of the building heights and the zoning definition. We also looked at the daycare and senior apart, or some of the other just exhibits that show for context. Go through some other images that might be helpful to you. So this plan up here, the red line is where the building was. And this dark dashed line is the village line. So we were basically abutting the town village line with our building. We've now taken it and moved it roughly 60 feet into the village property, which gets it further away from the residences in the town, reducing impacts to them. Again, this is just a bird's eye view for context. You have the senior living facility here with the 4-story in the center, the wings of the U with the 3-story pitched roof, and the daycare center adjacent to the church, and then the existing education building, which is really just a block study. But again, what I was mentioning about the mansard roof, that's this section of the building right there. And what we're kind of trying to mimic a little bit back here. This shows from Main Street, there's an existing photograph of the church looking at the driveway. I guess the southernmost driveway with the pump station just to the left of the photo. And then there's 2 images on the bottom. The one to the left is the 3-story scheme, and the one to the right is the 4-story scheme. Just to show there is really no visual difference between the two. Again, another view looking directly at the church down the center alley from Main Street. Again, there is no difference between the 3-story building and the 4-story building. And as we said, you can see the daycare center and the church really does a good job of blocking that central portion of the senior housing or senior living. One more as we drive up Main Street 52 on the other side of the church. Again, no real difference between the 3-story scheme and the 4-story scheme. And again, another one looking further past the church and closer to the education building. No real difference between the two views, whether it's 3-story or 4-story. We took a look at certain views from Main Street. What's the sight line, and how does it, how does what happens with the buildings in the front? How does that impact the view of the senior living behind it? So you can see again, as we put in the landscaping and do the daycare center, much of the housing is not visible on those two views. These are views from the town street, Wheaton, which is over here to the west. And then view D on the bottom is from Florence Avenue, the back road that we were going to have a connection to at one point. You can see that, with the existing houses, whether they're on our site, which is the ones that are shown in the Florence Avenue view, and the ones on Wheaton, the proposed building doesn't really shoot too far above that. It's not like towering above these existing structures. Comparison of the proposed building height, again, for the 3- and 4-story units. And no real difference. There's essentially sits at the same, I guess these are both 3 stories. Here with a building height of 40 feet. And then these are the 4 stories. And that, it's 40 feet because it's measured at the center of the pitched roof. Whereas for the 4-story, it's measured from the top.
And just a quick thing to point out, although it's more in front of the village board than it is in front of the planning board, in the sense of it's in the legislation, it is not a presumptive right to go to 4 stories and 45 feet the way we proposed the language. We created a link between how far you're set back from 52, and you needed to be a certain amount of distance set back in order to take full advantage of the ability to go to 4 stories and 45 feet, which is why I think 2 slides back ago we were showing how far back we were. And then also to note, is that the one? I think that's the one that starts to show how many, that ultimately the distance from Main Street to the senior patio is over 400 feet. And that's why it dissipates as well, as far as from the viewer's experience to be blocked. And then you don't have to go back there several slides, but I just want to remind everyone, when we started at the top of this visual section, we showed you that the footprint was moved 60 feet into the village, but that was, from a front to back part of the site. The actual side to side, we did not get any closer to either property boundary effectively. To the west. We didn't get any, the building didn't wind up going any closer to the west with those property lines. So that's why part of the reason why we lost those units was basically to hold that line, but to keep the project viable, we had to get clever and figure out how to use a mansard roof instead of a peaked roof in order to maintain the unit count at sufficient density in order to have a financeable project.
Yep. We were, I think, here. So this was just provided in your EAF report, just to kind of explain how the building heights are calculated, where when you have, again, the pitched roof, it's from the center of the pitched roof, but when you have the flat roof, it's from, but it's essentially just like it's shown in this section. It's essentially from standing there looking at it on the street or on the ground, it's the same building. And then these are just some additional views for context. This is looking at the entrance to the parking structure on the one end of the senior housing, and then this is the drop-off area just to the left of the view is the drop-off area for the daycare facility. And then this will be the front entrance to the living facility, which is on, again, the town village line side of the property. A nice porte cochere over the door, and some architectural elements and things for use of the residences. This is looking in at the dining area from the church. So this, to the right of this view is the corner of the church, and you're coming around the bend into the dining hall and the green space in the middle of the U. Next thing was the parking and traffic. We submitted a.
Actually, does anybody have any questions about the visual and how we approached it before we switch topics?
None? So traffic and parking study, we submitted a traffic and parking study to you and your consultants, and I think they've been substantially satisfied that we've addressed all of their concerns, and if there are any further concerns, we can talk about or whatever. Sarah, are you aware of anything that's outstanding that might impact seeker?
No, it's my understanding that everything, that there were no major outstanding issues with regard to traffic.
Okay.
Now, as far as the doctor's office are concerned, are you still in the process of purchasing those, or is there legal documentation saying that their patients can park on your property and et cetera, so on, back and forth?
So we do have a formal easement agreement. I believe it was recorded. I don't know, because of with COVID, if it actually has shown up and is searchable yet. Let me find out that, but I know it was submitted for recording. I just don't know if it's showing up, and that it gives both sides the rights you're talking about, Hans, as far as their ability to come park where we're proposing and building parking, and our ability to use their parking. And discussions as to being able to have control of that site are definitely ongoing, but our assumption has been working through just the rights we have right now, which is the easement, which allows us to come through and allows them to come through and to share parking, and gives them, and gives us certain rights also with their types of utilities through their property and vice versa.
Okay, so this agreement then is is written in stone in so that if somebody comes along and buys a doctor's offices at some time, whatever they have there, they would still have the shared parking, correct?
Yes, they would be buying it subject to that agreement, which has been, like I said, it's recorded. I just don't know if we have a doc number but I know Victoria's seen what we had executed.
Okay,
I believe we have a copy of that agreement in the office also.
okay.
I have a question. Will the church members during church services have access to the underground parking?
No, that my understanding on that is that the senior housing is the senior housing. That is solely for them. So the at-grade parking is first comes, first served, for lack of a better phrase. But the actual the actual underground parking is solely for the senior living component.
So, and then also I'll just touch on again the parking study that we did. The parking study basically assumed that the required parking for the senior living was 100% occupied 100% of the time. Very conservative. We assumed, like I said, that 110 or 111 parking spaces were occupied 100% of the time by the senior living uses. The ones that fluctuated were the church and the offices and the daycare. Okay. Then we took the next step and took a look at some of the utilities. Water and sewer we touched on already. We're going to be provided with or connect to the village water and sanitary services. We still have some details to work out through both of those. Gas service is we're beginning to work with Central Hudson to get our gas and electric, but the primary piece of this is that we are proposing a fuel cell, which we've touched on before. That fuel cell will provide climate control and hot water for the senior living facility. It's a 90% efficient unit, continuous energy, very reliable. It'll last. They're durable for 15 to 20 years, and they operate very sustainable. They operate with ultra low emissions. Basically, you're getting a mist out of your exhaust, and then it will provide it provides basically emergency power for the senior living during power failure, so there won't be as much of a dependence on the grid during those times, or really during any time at all. Again, we'll be meeting with, I know there's been some concerns raised about that by various staff, consultants, and the fire department. We will be meeting with them again this coming Monday evening at Village Hall, and hopefully be able to answer all of their concerns. A little more on the fuel cell will result in reduced dependence of this project on available gas and electric services, provide necessary energy for the living community during outages. Within that part of the report, we provided some documentation related to the fuel cell. There was a NYSERDA grant offered for this. There was some information on how the fuel cell works, and I'm not going to go through this because I'm no expert. But bottom line is it's very efficient, and it's the first one, I believe, in Dutchess County, if if I'm stating that correctly, Bill or Charlie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been very successful. Some universities in Connecticut and some other places. And we've offered to allow for anyone who needs to can tour one of those places. We will have, when it's built, we will have a training session for staff, the fire departments, et cetera, on how it works. There are safety features locked into it where if there is some kind within all these electronic parts or whatever, it just shuts down and throws out an alarm. So there's a lot of efficiency and a lot of safety built into these units. Stormwater management was the next one. We've already kind of touched on that. We provided a very substantial stormwater pollution prevention plan that out the mitigation of this project on the quantity and quality of water to be discharged from this site after construction. Floodplain we touched on previously. Within your site plan set, provided with this figure that shows existing conditions on the top. You can see the numbers in blue within the property line, and the dashed line above it shows the area of the site that's within the floodplain. And we did a volume calculation within that area. And based on the proposed grades on the site, that area in the bottom of the plan, the figure in the bottom of the plan has been reduced, which is why we're providing compensatory storage connected to the existing drainage facility right in this area. Archaeologic history, I think Neil touched on this already. We have a letter from February from SHPO. Based upon this review, it is our opinion, it is the opinion of OPRHP that no properties, including archaeological and/or historic resources listed or eligible for New York State or National Registry of the Historic Places will be impacted by this project. Endangered species, we received a letter back in November from which basically indicates that we have potentially the Indiana bat in the vicinity of our site, which limits tree removal. I think it's between March and October, if I remember correctly. There was an indication that we should have a note on our plans that states that already. I believe that that note is already on the plan, and if it is not, we will certainly add it, and we will comply with that requirement. There's just a lot of information about the Indiana bats, and that's really a substantial summary, I guess, of what we provided to you and what's related to Speaker and how we think our project can be deemed with a negative declaration. And I don't know if you had touched on our anticipated schedule or if you want to, or.
I think we've been going for a long period of time, so I guess we can get there. Why don't we let's, I think we turn it back to you, Chair, and to the board and to staff as to where you all want to go next. I know we kind of were projecting through a lot of the minutia for about an hour there straight. So thank you for indulging that and letting us sort of set the table with all that information. But, we would defer to you all as to where we go from, in this meeting right at this moment.
I have a question there that's an engineering question. It says you're going to need a pump station for the sewer. where, is that going to be a separate building, or is that something that's underground, or how does something like that work?
Okay, so I think that is, that would be for the church. And I'm just going to go back to that plan quick here. And basically, the property or the church already has, there already is a pump station or a pump inside the church for the sanitary to come out of the building, and then it's pumped into the septic field. So what was indicated in the comments was that, you know, we may need to update that pump. And the reason for that pump is because the church has a basement. We are not proposing a basement for the childcare or for, so the sanitary coming out of the childcare is by gravity. Same thing as the sanitary coming out of the senior living facility. That is all by gravity as well. If for some reason we need to put a pump into the parking and mechanical space that needs to be connected to the sanitary, that would be simply for spills. I don't think it would, you know, there's not going to be any restrooms or anything like that there. So that would be a significantly small pump. And we would, you know, obviously submit that as part of the building permit package.
Okay. Does any of the board members have any comments or questions at this time? Roll call. Angie, would take a roll call, please?
I don't, I'm good.
Hans, this is Steve. I don't have any questions or comments right now.
Raylene?
No questions.
Suzanne?
No questions at this time.
Teresa?
No more. I have no more additional questions.
Okay, Hans.
Okay. All right, the next step would be the sessions that we talked about were we would invite the public in for comment. It would not be a public hearing, it would be a comment session. Is that correct, Victoria?
Correct. The board, last time they were before you, many months ago, you had discussed having a public comment session so that a lot of the neighbors and the public could come in and submit comments before you completed your environmental review, just to make sure that there weren't some issues that hadn't been addressed already. So now that everyone's comfortable, we can do that in this Zoom format.
Okay. We would normally meet on the 16th of July, but I think you have a problem with that, Victoria. You'd like to change the date to possibly the 23rd or the 30th?
Yeah, I mean, if everyone's open for it, that would work better for me. And it also would provide more time to get notice out to the neighbors.
True.
Okay.
I gotta go check my
I
calendar.
think we were trying to figure out a few things, and we understand that these are very hard times, and everyone's schedule is being juggled. I think, you know, obviously we're open to the public. We made changes to our project that are significant because of that public input. I think, and we're not trying to forestall that. I think we were hoping to try and be in front of the village board on July 22nd, which is their next meeting. That was some of what we were thinking about. Victoria, I didn't know about your conflict, so I'm not trying to
The
press,
village
so I
board,
recognize.
board's meeting is July 13th.
Oh, I thought they were meeting on the 22nd as well.
No, there's only one meeting in July. They changed the workshop of the regular meeting. There's only one meeting in July. It's July 13th.
Okay, that changes our thinking significantly. So thank you for sharing that. So, I mean, our goal candidly then is really to be expressed about it is to wind up on the next agenda after July 13th at the village board is meeting. Is that going to be the first week in August then, Angie?
Yes, it will be so far. Nothing's
Okay.
been changed.
So we really would like to have the public input and seeker finished by July, so that way we can be talking about the zoning text amendment at that August meeting with the village board. And recognizing everyone's schedules and recognizing that we all are depleted by what we all are collectively navigating. I fully recognize that. If there needed to be 2 meetings, we would support 2 meetings between now and July 30th. One for a public session where we could also maybe work through a draft of a negative declaration, kind of like we worked through the minutia tonight, and another one where your board could hopefully adopt it and do all that work between now and the August. I don't have the exact date. I was going to look at a calendar as we were chatting. So that's going to be like August 5th or something. Does that sound right? Am I on the right?
Workshop.
August 3rd.
Yeah.
August 3rd. That's really what we're hoping to accomplish. I guess is that possible?
So, when the board has the public comment session, they won't be making a seeker determination that evening because they want to, provide the opportunity for people to comment, and then they want to consider those comments. So you're asking that they have that meeting and then they meet again a week later.
Something of that sort. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm asking. Fortunately, July's got 5 weeks, right?
You want to take full advantage of them. That's really up to the board.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
It's also, it's a pretty quick turnaround on drafting the necessary documents as well. But again,
what I would sort of assert is and I'm sorry for being so pushy. It's candidly, I'm just looking at where we are in the world we're in, and that we have support for this project, and it's a good tax rateable, and we have been sporadically, but it has been about a year. And candidly, really candidly, even once the neg deck is done, we still need to go to the village board, work through the zoning text amendments. We have site plan and special permit with your board, but you can't really pursue that until the zoning text amendments are finished. And we have to go to the ZBA for variances. And what I was sort of thinking of candidly is that the way 617.7 is set up in seeker is, God forbid, the zoning text amendment process or the variance process resulted in something different than we thought as a planning board, as lead agency. The planning board has the right to A, amend its neg deck, or B, rescind a neg deck. So given those aspects on the back end, and the fact that, essentially I see what we submitted on May 13th is really close. The 30 pages there are really close to essentially the resolution of a negative declaration and the findings of it. And the record hasn't been controverted and staff has supported our conclusions. I think that the ability to have that public session and then to pull together a resolution for adoption of a neg deck is really feasible. A lot of that's in writing in Word for you all already that we shared. I'm sorry to be so pushy. It's just what I'm concerned about is that we still really do need to get in front of the village board to confirm that they're going to be supportive, like you all have been supportive for the same reasons, of the height issue. And we need to really know that in an affirmative fashion, and we have variances we have to get to, but then we come back to you and there are issues that I know that are site plan issues that we're going to need to work on with you. And what I'm sort of asking to do is separate the two, which may not be as common for your board, but we have so many boards that are in on this that, I know your more common practice is to want to give a neg deck and then literally like a month or two later be in a position to give site plan approval. We have so many intervening approvals that we sort of need to get cut loose, without the site plan at 100%, but the site plan more at 85, 90%, but seeker at 100%. That's really where I'm going here.
Victoria, I think I need to interject here just to get some items out on the table during these discussions relative to seeker. I agree with Neil and with Joe that the last package was very substantial, and I also agree that a lot of our comments, I mean, we had a pretty lengthy comment letter. I agree that a lot of our comments are nuts and bolts and site plan issues. However, I disagree on a couple of items that they're saying are not seeker issues, and I want to get them out there so that they can get discussed and resolved to determine what they should be. It's always been my understanding, at least within the last three or four times that the consultants have gotten together with the applicant, that the primary proposal was a water line to Wood Street, and that was going to show up on plans and be considered in the seeker document. And what you've got shown now is going to also be proposed as an alternative. So I see that being a necessity to consider seeker, as having that line on the plan for the connection to Wood Place. Joe's office has done a tremendous job with drainage, but I think there's some elements that I would require before saying that it's complete enough for seeker. There's some blanket statements that really, let me see if I can get back to it. I hope I didn't erase them here. I highlighted them as we were speaking. Okay, so here, this will give you a gist of our comments. Joe, we're saying that you've demonstrated that the water quality volume, 10,000 of the required 18,000 will be reduced, but you're not showing us how you're reducing the balance. And I'm kind of thinking that you guys have this information and we're not finding it, but I'm not comfortable without knowing where that is. And another one is, please demonstrate that 100% of the WQV will be reduced by the proposed infiltration. And you say that we'll confirm that with field testing. Well, that field testing hasn't been sent to us. So that to me is definitely a prerequisite to saying that we're good, because that's really going to qualify, well, yes, does this work or doesn't? And I think you've got a lot of that information. We need to see it. So let's see. And then there's a couple other things where you're calling things out. The storm tech chambers, we're not really sure where you're showing them. And the hydraulic conveyance of the capacity of the conveyance system. Yeah, that sounds like a technical issue, but if it doesn't work, it can result in some significant changes. So, we would want to see that kind of information up front. And so Neil, I'm going to be a little pushy back. These are technical items that they got the manpower and the horsepower to do. So, we'll review them, get them into us.
Totally agreed. I hear what you're saying. So let's just take, and I think you're in agreement.
Let me finish. Let me
yeah, okay, go ahead.
So then we can talk. The last real significant one is the fuel cell. And hopefully that'll get resolved on Monday. A lot of information was submitted, but none of the information was relative to safety. The word safety was not once found in any of the information that was submitted. And the village loves the fact that you're proposing fuel cells and it's an alternative source. The concern is what kind of safety exposures are there? And maybe there are none, but we don't have any evidence to that. That's what we've been kind of asking is, show it. Everybody says, yeah, it's a safe method of supply and it shuts itself down. But if it shuts itself down, there's got to be some reason why it does that. I mean, atomic reactors shut themselves down too. So obviously.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's a little bit of hyperbole. Remember, NYSERDA reviewed this application. We were the only winner of this PON number 3841, which was essentially to bring stationary fuel cell programs that NYSERDA has. So we won a big award. This is a feather in the village's cap. I'm not trying to sidestep your safety question, but I think we have to, because I get where the jocular comment was, and I'm cool with that because I make them all the time, but I don't want anyone else on the board to misconstrue that. So ultimately,
Oh yeah, I agree. And my apologies. It wasn't intended that way. And I think
right.
No,
and that's where I'm.
Easy. I think the answer is probably easy. We just need to get the information.
I completely agree. Completely agree. But I just like way upstream. I just want everyone to fully understand here that NYSERDA, okay, which is trying to steer us to 50% renewable electricity by 2030, had a stationary fuel cell program where it put out a program opportunity notice. This is the only one that was a winner in the Central Hudson region. It's a really big deal. And fuel cells, by the way, just by context, the DPUC for the state of Connecticut, because of how it got hit by Superstorm Sandy, did a whole resiliency and infrastructure hardening docket right after Sandy. It's particularly focused on cell towers, which our firm does a lot of, obviously, to try and convince the carriers to stop using generators and to start using cells as their backup power source when natural gas was readily available.
That's the kind of information you need to get to us.
Yeah. So, so I am confident that and thankful that we have the July 6th meeting. Unfortunately, that's a few days away, right? And we will work with you all to get there. But I just didn't want anyone to think that this was not only novel, but somehow unregulated or unsupervised or really at the extreme end of the vanguard here. It is well within, it's just unfamiliar to maybe this area as much as opposed to others. And look, I know from doing community solar that, a lot of people have a hard time understanding what has to happen at the connect, at the demarcs relative to bringing that electricity into the system. And people kind of brace at first that you're like, need to upgrade the lines. Why? They make conclusions. And so you're hitting the brakes on the safeties, totally understood, and we're gonna get there. As far as
let me finish up here.
Yep, you got a couple more. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
And then, but even before I go there, I think you took my comment about the atomic reactors differently. I'm in favor of nuclear power, and I think that they're safe, but all the things are in place to do that. We're just looking for the information. So. One other thing that we talked about at a prior meeting was the water loop around the building. And this may be more of a site plan issue. I just want to get it out there, Joe. You've got now a long stub running along the,
yep,
right? We were that's exactly what we were trying to avoid. The conversation we had, I thought we were going to go into the building. And since you were going to have a fire suppression system, it was going to come off of one of the standpipes and come out. If you can't accommodate that, if you have to go with what we've got on the plan, then the village does want that water line because we want to make sure it doesn't leak. We don't want that long of a lateral and a hydrant without our ability to get in there and fix it. We would prefer not to have a long dead end like that. We talked about you guys bringing it into the building and running a private hydrant out. That would be acceptable to us. That's kind of what we went to. Again, that's a site plan issue, not an issue. The last thing and I don't think this is an issue, but I just want to make sure we put it to bed. Neil, you mentioned the condo ownership. There is a property line in this property. I think there's two pieces of property in the village, right? Am I?
Actually, there's not. We have one. The church has one lot, and Cecilwood is a separate lot.
Can you pull up a?
Hold on. Let me get to it. know what, give me a second to find the existing conditions. That'll be easier.
So
yeah.
even if there is multiple lots, the question really is, if we're leaving them as they are, we got no concerns. If we need to consolidate, then we run into that village regulation about subdivision in floodplains.
Right, we're not looking to change any property lines. We've decided to do a commercial condo with an REA, reciprocal easement agreement.
Just want to make sure that that's, we don't get caught, we don't get blindsided with that, that's all.
No, it's a commercial. My hedging is only as to in the sense of our 100% intent is commercial condo. We're not aware, it's more of my hedging is, sometimes I don't know what I don't know, right? Our content is 100% commercial condo with cross easements within the condo between what is a common element and what is an individual element.
Okay, so again, the question is really, are we changing any lot lines? If the answer is no, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
No lot lines. And then on the SWIP, I hear you about exactly how we're going to get into compliance with DEC's, new GP, but we're going to get there. I can speak for Joe on that. It's just a question of how.
And a
So
lot
from
of
a seeker standpoint, we know it's going to comply.
Yeah,
It's
and a
just a
lot of
question of how.
the SWIP comments that we've got, I agree. They're nuts and bolts comments, and I'm comfortable that they've gotten to the point where we know we can make it work. They just need to work out the details. But there's a couple of unknowns in there that we need them to nail down for us.
Okay. And on the water line, I mean, I think maybe Joe, if you're pulling stuff, maybe that would help for a second to get a plan out. So that way everyone understands there is no hesitancy on our part. And if it were solely within our control, the answer would be yes. The only reason why we're playing with the language here is because, when Joe pulls up a plan, maybe he can do a better job of explaining it than I can. But there's an element of this that's not within our control. And again, it goes back to the receptions that we've received at Town Hall as opposed to Village Hall. And therefore, we don't want to let the tail wag the dog.
And the village is receptive of that. The village.
So Larry, the essence here is it's probably all of us getting in a room and figuring out how to write the language the right way. And because there was no element of retrade intended in the way we did these drawings whatsoever. We'll show whatever you want on them. It's just completely the fact that we don't want to get stuck with a plan that's an approved plan with an element on it that is not solely within our control and the village's control and the county's control, and we inadvertently over-empower somebody.
So what we want to get to is a seeker determination that shows the primary design as the connection to wood with an acceptable alternative if that's determined not to be feasible the way it's shown now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get to the actual site plan, when the rubber hits the road, we'll figure out which way we're going.
Agreed, completely agreed. Victoria, did you?
No. I mean, I was just going to echo Larry's comments that we wanted to approve both, and we still also want you to try with the primary preferred option. And then, if after some effort it comes back that you can't do it, then we'll discuss the alternative. But it's just not enough to say, well, they don't like us. Like there has to be some effort.
The sooner you give me my neg deck, the sooner I can start trying.
Does the planning board have any questions with any of the things we just brought up?
I'm sorry, I missed that. I was too busy being snarky. Sorry.
I was just asking if the planning board had any questions about some of the discussions we just had. Okay, good.
There was a lot of detail tonight. So the planning board, again, they haven't seen the plans like we did every month. So there's a lot to take in.
So with that, Joe's got a little bit of work to do.
So can I make a proposal?
Well, Sarah, we haven't heard from Sarah. Does Sarah want to summarize comments?
Am I unmuted? Yes. I don't think we need to go over my comments in too much detail, but what I would like to say is, to the board, to touch on what you were just saying, Victoria, there have been a lot of changes, and part of those changes are going to be what you're considering under the seeker review, such as the architecture of the building for community character, the height that they're proposing with the mansard roof and the 4 stories. So if anything is jumping out at you or you're uncomfortable with something, now would be the time to let the applicant know so that we can deal with that prior to any kind of seeker determination. I think from my end of things, that is the big thing that the board needs to be looking at from planning about the site and about the seeker review.
The thing is, I didn't get any of the plans until this afternoon. And to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't had a chance to even open up the envelopes. What I would be prepared to do, though, because a lot of things of this, the board just probably all got the envelopes today. So to, it'd be unfair for us to just quickly look at them and say, what? I would propose that we, if at all possible, with the other board members, we meet on the 23rd for the public input. And then again, meet again on the 6th of August or the I prefer the 13th, even though that if we meet on the 6th or the 13th, you could go before the board on the village board, either on the 3rd with your basic outline. And then again, they were probably going to want to have some more information, then you could possibly meet again with them on the 17th. If that's what the village board calendar is for August. Is that correct, Angie?
Yeah, so far those are the dates.
Yeah, okay. How does the planning board feel about having a meeting on the 23rd for the input meeting? Roll call.
Steve?
I think the 23rd is doable for me.
Suzanne?
It should work for me because I'm away the following week. I leave that on Saturday. So the 23rd should be fine.
Teresa?
Yeah, but is this instead of the 16th, or are we also meeting on the 16th, which is our regular scheduled time?
No, we're not meeting on the 16th. We'd be
Okay.
meeting 23rd.
All right. Yes, the 23rd is fine for me.
Raylene?
That's good.
Okay, Hans.
Okay, yeah, that's good with me. Victoria, would that work for you?
The 23rd, it's the Thursday after the regular meeting, right?
Right.
Yeah, that works for me. Thank you.
Okay. Sarah, does that work for you?
Yes, I'm available that night.
Engineering? Larry?
That actually works better for me as well. Thank you.
Okay, and then after on the meeting of the 23rd, then we can see what kind of input we got from the public, and everybody will have a chance to see what the new plans are and have any questions at that time. And then we could set up an earlier meeting in August to get this project going. I understand that because of this horrible disease, and we're everything's put on hold for quite some time, but we are a volunteer board, and we will bend over backwards for you, and I feel we have bent over backwards for you along with the village board on this project. It's a good project. We want it to go through, but we have to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So is that acceptable to the applicant?
I completely understand where you're going. Yes. And it sounds like that gives Joe and our team time to drill down with Larry and get those issues addressed and make sure it's reflected on the plan particularly it sounds like really the water line, just get that reflected on the plan the way he wants it reflected. And then that way he'll be in a position by, like the 16th to get his work on his comment memo. So that when we show up on the 23rd, the list is much shorter.
So as far as giving the public an opportunity to see the plans, are these posted on the village website?
So I don't know. What I was going to say is, candidly, we have not changed anything since everything was submitted digitally on April 30th and May 13th. So it's the same ones. We provided hard copies, I think, today. So that way board members who may be on a 13-inch laptop could have half-size sheets, and something a little bigger for detail. But it's no different than what everyone's been able to look at since May 13th and, scroll in on Adobe and all that.
Okay, so I was going to ask if it would be possible for the village to post the plans on the village website so that when the notice goes out, we can direct people to a particular place to view the plan.
Well, what I can do is when I post a notice, I can link those documents to that notice. They can just click on it and I would upload the documents onto the website. So when they click on the notice, they'll click on that item and then they will come up.
Okay, because we're also going to ask the applicant to mail the notice, a hard copy of the notice to all the neighbors.
Okay.
So if you and I can talk about how to word that.
Okay.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion that we set a.
Just hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just want to confirm that it's going to be a Zoom public session.
Correct.
Yes.
I don't know if we'll be in phase 4. So there were 17 of us on this, and I just figured if 8 people showed up, we'd be at the 25 limit.
No, that's why it'll be a Zoom meeting. Hopefully after that, we can actually look at each other in the same building.
Do we have a distance for the neighbors?
How far do you want to send notice?
I believe our code states 500 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what we do for regular public hearings. So we should follow the same notice requirement as we would for a public hearing.
I would think, yes.
So when you did Jackson, did you do 100 feet from the property only in the village or 500 feet from the property in all directions?
What we typically do is we've notified the village residents within 500 feet and we notify the town of Fishkill government. And then they can do what they want on their side with that.
Well, we have to notify the residents in the town portion.
I think that's not what.
That's what, for this public comment session, it's going to be the portion that's proposed for development. It should be within 500 feet of that boundary line.
And all residents, village and town.
Okay.
So within 500 feet of the village portion of our property, not within 500 feet of the town portion of our property, because we're not doing any development on that property.
Correct. It's from 500 feet from where we're proposing development, which is solely in the village. Okay.
Lose power, Victoria?
I did. I'm sitting in the dark right now.
Oh my God.
I was like,
Oh,
Victoria,
no.
dark.
You need that fuel cell.
Yeah. I don't know how long my backup battery is going to last. So,
Hey, can we be hooked up tonight?
so we voted. The board voted to schedule the public comment session, right?
We didn't vote.
No, we didn't actually vote yet.
Okay, so we need to finish that vote before this.
Victoria, yeah.
Motion. We need a motion first.
I have a motion to have a meeting on the 23rd for a public comment session for this project.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Dan Speziale.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Hans Klingson,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Raylene,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
carried.
Okay, we will have a meeting on 7 o'clock on the 23rd. Thank you very much, and we definitely, everybody will be in touch with everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
Larry, will you be there on Monday night?
I will not. I'm actually away for a couple of weeks, Joe, but I'm going to be in contact every day with the office and I will be responding to emails. So we'll get this, you guys get us the information. We'll be very responsive.
Okay.
Everybody have a good 4th of July. Happy Independence Day.
Same
Yeah.
to
Great
you.
vacation, Larry.
Enjoy your time off.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Larry.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, board members,
Bye.
on the 16th, there's a webinar skills for making great board members. If you can get on that course, I suggest you sign up if you can. And just keep track of, if you do go, so that we can keep track of hours. And as far as hours goes, we will have in-house training if necessary, so everybody will have their hours. And so nobody has to worry about that. One other question I have for is the church problem, not Nazarene, the Methodist Church. Does anybody know where we stand with that? I thought we were all set and ready to go.
I just to let everyone know we lost Victoria, but she just phoned in. So she's back.
Yes. I'm back. Hi. By phone.
Okay.
I wish you got lost power about an hour ago.
Yeah. Oh.
The Methodist Church. Larry, I'll start with you.
Okay, I think, I'm pretty sure we're in good shape with them. But Victoria, I don't think a bond was ever submitted.
This project, oh my God. I thought we had said all conditions had been met, but Angie, would you know if a bond was submitted for the church, one that's being demolished?
I don't think
The
it was.
Methodist Church?
But now I'll double check, but I don't think it was. I have to look.
Okay.
As far as I know, it has not. I went to Keith Gullery this afternoon after work, and I asked him about that, and he said that as per his attorney, Rod, whatever his name is, he is going to be submitting the plans for Hans' signature, obviously, hopefully sometime this next week. And as far as the bond, it's on Louis Rivera to bring that bond forward. Now, I think Louis has a different opinion, so I don't know how this is going to play out yet.
Well, I won't sign anything unless the village has got a bond. That was part of the agreement, correct?
Yes, it's a condition.
Right.
And it's not a big item. It's less than $10,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tom, can you talk to that person and tell them that, yeah, you can, I directed everything be sent to Larry's office so that Larry's office can make sure that everything is status quo as far as the drawings and everything else like that goes, but also tell them that I will not sign them unless proof of the bond has been submitted. And then when it is, maybe Angie can give me a call or let me know it's okay, and then I will sign the project, and then we'll get rid of it, hopefully.
I can reach out to Keith tomorrow and let him know, but again, he's going to tell me it's Lewis's problem, and I don't want to get involved in that ping pong match again. So, I'll do what I can. I'm leaving for vacation next Thursday, so it's a short week for me next week, but I will do the best I can to get that message to Keith, and we'll see what they can work out.
Okay.
I think some of the confusion with this thing may have come in because there was a talk of a bond for the house, moving the house, and we ended up not requiring that because the company that's going to move the house has to carry insurance, basically to guarantee that they're going to be able to move it. And that,
right.
I believe that was accepted by Greg.
Yes.
That insurance. So I think that part's done. And Victoria, maybe that's what you're recalling.
Oh, that's what I'm remembering then. That Greg, okay, yes, that's absolutely right, Larry.
but I don't think we ever got the bond for the village, for the work in the village road right of way primarily on the sewer.
We did not. We did not.
Okay, so they have to come up with the bond. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
Okay. So, do any of the other board members have any comments or questions at this time about anything?
I have a question about the agenda. Did we receive any other applications for the upcoming meeting, or is it just going to be Wesley Center again?
I just went for Wesley Center, so it'd be less confusing for everybody.
Well, we may have a sign application because our agenda is open until next Wednesday. We might have a sign application, but that's all I know coming up.
Okay, if it does come in, then we can knock off the sign application very quickly. Is that,
And are the applicants still on?
not that I know of.
No, they're not.
I think we should ask them to prepare a 10 to 15-minute presentation for the public comment session.
I'm with you.
Limited time.
Yes, limit them.
That sounds very good to me. You can go ahead and make
Okay.
that call, Victoria.
I'll
Call them
call Neil. I'll call Neil and ask him that, because the public needs to see pictures, but I don't think they need all the details.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It'll become a feeding frenzy as it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to give them the chance to review the plans before the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have some good visuals, so they could do their presentation with that little blurb that Joe did on the site, on the renderings.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows, I told them at the beginning of the week that we just needed a brief overview tonight.
Well, I think it's a matter of perspective.
Well, I think they're used to getting paid by the hour.
Touche.
Oh,
Wait,
He gets paid by the
we're
word.
still recording unless, Sarah, you've stopped it, so.
Yeah. I did not, because we haven't had the meeting.
Oh, we can make fun of applicants, right? in a harmless, gesturing way.
I'm still in the meeting.
It was a lovely presentation.
Yes.
Nice to see all of you tonight.
All right, does anybody else have any comments or questions at this time?
No.
The smell went away,
No, anyway.
Did it?
right?
Not 100%, not 100%.
Yeah, there's a little bit of it every now and then, but yeah, not as bad as it was.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions for anybody or from anybody, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's Raylene, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, roll call, vote please.
Hans Klingsheim,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Raylene,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
carried.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good 4th of July. Hey,
You as
Andy,
Okay,
well.
you all too.
All right, bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.